The massive alien ship blocked out the sun over New York City. It was 3 times larger than any building on Earth, floating silently above Manhattan like a metal mountain. People stopped on the streets to stare up at it, their phones recording everything. Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the window of the United Nations building, watching the ship with cold eyes. He had been expecting this day for 6 months, ever since humanity made first contact with the Galactic Council. The aliens had been polite at first, almost friendly. That should have been the first warning sign. "They're coming down," said Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, stepping up beside him. She was Earth's top expert on alien behavior, though that wasn't saying much since they had only known aliens existed for half a year. 3 shuttles just launched from the main ship. Morrison nodded. He could see the small craft descending toward the UN building. Each shuttle was the size of a city bus but moved with impossible grace through the air. No sound, no visible engines, just smooth flight that made Earth's best aircraft look like toys. "Any word from the president?" he asked. "She's on her way," Rodriguez replied. 20 minutes out. Morrison hoped they had 20 minutes. The aliens had sent a message yesterday requesting an immediate meeting with Earth's leaders. Not asking, requesting. There was a difference, and Morrison didn't like what it suggested. The first shuttle touched down on the UN's landing pad with barely a whisper. The door opened with a soft hiss and Ambassador Zixthara stepped out. Morrison had met the alien before, but he still found the creature unsettling. Zixthara was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow in the Yar. Sunlight. Its head was larger than a human's, with enormous black eyes that never seemed to blink. When it spoke, its voice was perfectly clear English, though its mouth barely moved. "Admiral Morrison?" Zixthara said as it approached. "Dr. Rodriguez, I trust you are prepared for our discussion." "We're ready," Morrison replied, though he wasn't sure that was true. They walked through the UN building in silence. Other aliens followed behind them, all wearing the same flowing robes that marked them as council representatives. Morrison noticed how other humans in the building moved out of their way, some staring in wonder, others in fear. The main conference room was already prepared. President Helen Brooks sat at the head of the table, flanked by Director Paul Carter, from the Department of Corrections and several other government officials. Morrison took his seat across from the aliens. Zixthara didn't waste time with pleasantries. It activated a small device that projected a holographic star map above the table. Dozens of systems were marked in different colors. "The Galactic Council has made a decision regarding your species," the alien began. "Earth will now contribute to the greater galactic community." "What kind of contribution?" President Brooks asked. Her voice was steady, but Morrison could see the tension in her shoulders. "Labor," Zixthara replied simply. "Your species shows promise in physical tasks. You will provide 10,000 of your finest specimens to work in our outer rim colonies." The room went silent. Morrison felt his blood run cold. "You want us to give you 10,000 people?" Dr. Rodriguez said, her voice rising slightly. "It is not a request," Zixthara explained, its tone still calm and polite. "It is a requirement. All species that join the galactic community must contribute according to their abilities. Humans are physically capable and numerous. Your contribution will be labor." "And if we refuse?" President Brooks asked. For the first time, something like emotion crossed the alien's face. It might have been amusement. "The last species that refused our generosity required orbital restructuring of their major population centers," Zixthara said. "They reconsidered their position afterward." Morrison understood the threat. Orbital restructuring meant bombing cities from space. "How do we know you won't just take more people later?" he asked. "The tribute system is quite fair," Zixthara replied. 10,000 individuals every 5 years. In return, Earth receives protection from hostile species and access to basic galactic technology. Many worlds would consider this arrangement generous. Director Carter leaned forward. "What kind of work would these people be doing?" "Mining operations, agricultural development, construction projects," the alien listed. "Standard colonial labor. The conditions are acceptable for your species' physical requirements." "You mean they'll be slaves?" President Brooks said flatly. They will be workers, Zixthera corrected. They will receive food, shelter, and basic medical care. After 20 years of service, they may request reassignment to other colonies. 20 years. Morrison did the math quickly. Most of the people sent would never see Earth again. We need time to consider this, the president said. Of course, Zixthera agreed. You have 30 Earth days to select your candidates and prepare them for transport. We will return then to collect them. The alien stood, and the others followed. As they moved toward the door, Zixthera paused. I would suggest choosing your best physical specimens, it added. Strong, healthy individuals between the ages of 18 and 40. The colonies require capable workers. After the aliens left, the room erupted in angry voices. Everyone was talking at once, arguing about impossible choices and unwinnable situations. Morrison sat quietly, thinking. 10,000 people, Earth's best and brightest, sent to work as slaves on alien worlds. The aliens expected them to choose carefully, to send their most valuable citizens. Director Carter was talking about prison overcrowding, mentioning that the system was stretched beyond capacity. Dr. Rodriguez was explaining alien psychology, trying to understand their motivations. Then Morrison had an idea. A terrible, brilliant idea. Paul, he said, interrupting the conversation. How many prisoners are currently serving life sentences? Carter looked confused. About 12,000, why? What about violent offenders with sentences over 20 years? Maybe 8,000 more. Jake, what are you thinking? Morrison looked around the table at the confused faces of Earth's leaders. The aliens want 10,000 humans. They want our finest specimens. But they never actually defined what that means. Understanding began to dawn on President Brooks's face. You're suggesting we send criminals instead of citizens. I'm suggesting we give the aliens exactly what they asked for, Morrison replied. 10,000 humans. They assumed we'd send our best people because that's what other species do. But maybe it's time to show them that humans don't always do what's expected. Dr. Rodriguez was staring at him. Jake, you're talking about sending murderers and terrorists to alien colonies. I'm talking about giving convicted criminals a choice, Morrison said. Serve their full sentences on Earth or take their chances in space. Either way, Earth keeps its law-abiding citizens. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. It could work, President Brooks said slowly. The aliens seem to care more about numbers than quality. It's insane, Dr. Rodriguez protested. What happens when they figure out what we've done? Morrison smiled grimly. Then we find out just how much the Galactic Council really knows about human nature. 3 weeks had passed since the meeting with the aliens. In maximum security prisons across America, something unusual was happening. Guards were calling inmates to special meetings. Lawyers were arriving with strange new paperwork. And prisoners, who had given up hope years ago, were suddenly being offered a choice that seemed impossible. Danny Sullivan sat in the small interview room at ADX Florence, staring at the government official across from him. Sullivan was 42 years old, built like a brick wall and serving 3 life sentences for murder. He had been locked up for 15 years and expected to die behind bars. Let me understand this correctly, Sullivan said, his Boston accent thick with disbelief. You want to send me to space? Commander Rick Taylor, the military officer handling the interviews, nodded. That's right. The alien colonies need workers. You can finish your sentences here on Earth, or you can volunteer for 5 years of labor service off-world. And after 5 years, you're free. Clean record, fresh start, anywhere in human space. Sullivan laughed, but there was no humor in it. What's the catch? There's always a catch. Taylor was quiet for a moment. The work will be hard. Mining, construction, farming. The conditions won't be comfortable, and there's no guarantee you'll survive the 5 years. Sounds better than dying in this cage, Sullivan said. What do you need from me? Similar conversations were happening in prisons across the country. Maria Santos, former cartel enforcer, signed her papers at a federal facility in Texas. Tony Mitchell, ex-Special Forces turned arms dealer, agreed to the deal at a military prison in Kansas. Karen White, who had stolen $50 million through computer fraud, volunteered from her minimum security facility in California. The selection process was careful but quick. The government wanted criminals who were smart, tough, and desperate enough to take the risk. Gang leaders who could organize people, military veterans who understood tactics, technical experts who could adapt to new situations. The worst, but also the most capable. Dr. Amy Foster was the prison psychologist evaluating the volunteers. She had expected chaos and violence from the interviews. Instead, she found something more disturbing. Hope. They're actually excited about this, she told Commander Taylor after a long day of evaluations. These people have been written off by society, locked away forever. Now someone is offering them a chance at freedom. They'd follow you into hell. They might have to, Taylor replied grimly. The preparation phase began immediately. 10,000 volunteers were transported to a secret military facility in Nevada. The official story was advanced prisoner rehabilitation training. The reality was something closer to basic military preparation. The criminals were organized into groups of 50, each led by natural leaders who emerged from their ranks. Danny Sullivan found himself commanding a mixed group of murderers, drug dealers, and white-collar criminals. He discovered he was good at it. "Listen up," Sullivan told his group on their first day. "I don't care what you did to get locked up. I don't care what gang you ran with or who you killed. Out there, we're all just humans. The aliens don't know the difference between a saint and a sinner. They just see meat." The training was basic, but useful. How to operate in low gravity, how to use alien tools and equipment, basic first aid and survival skills. Most importantly, how to work together without killing each other. Maria Santos proved to be excellent at organizing supply chains and logistics. Her experience moving drugs across borders translated well to moving equipment and information. Tony Mitchell trained groups in basic combat tactics, disguised as workplace safety procedures. Karen White studied every piece of alien technology they were shown, memorizing details that might be useful later. The government provided minimal medical care and basic education about their destination worlds. Officially, this was to make them better workers. Unofficially, hidden weapons and communication devices were smuggled into their supplies, small things that might not be noticed by alien inspectors. Knives disguised as tools, radios built into food containers, explosive materials mixed with cleaning supplies. "We're not just sending you as workers," Commander Taylor explained to the group leaders during a private briefing. "You're also our eyes and ears out there. Learn everything you can about alien technology, military capabilities, and weaknesses. Send back information when possible." "You're asking us to be spies," Danny Sullivan said. "I'm asking you to be patriots," Taylor replied. "Earth might need that information someday." The aliens visited twice during the preparation period. Ambassador Zixathara inspected the facilities with the same polite disinterest it had shown at the UN. The prisoners were introduced as Earth-selected workforce volunteers. The alien seemed pleased with their physical condition and asked few questions. "Your species adapts well to instruction," Zixathara told Commander Taylor. "These specimens should prove adequate for colonial labor." Taylor smiled and agreed, while 10,000 hardened criminals pretended to be model workers. As the departure date approached, unexpected bonds formed among the prisoners. Men and women who would have killed each other on the streets found themselves working together. Gang members from rival territories discovered they had more in common than they thought. The shared experience of imprisonment and the unknown future ahead broke down old barriers. Steve Johnson, a demolitions expert serving time for domestic terrorism, found himself teaching basic engineering to reformed drug addicts. Sandra Davis, a con artist with a gift for reading people, became an informal counselor for younger prisoners struggling with the decision. "This is either the stupidest thing we've ever done, or the smartest," she told Johnson one evening as they watched the sunset through the facility's windows. "Probably both," he replied. On the final night before departure, Danny Sullivan gathered the group leaders together. They represented every type of criminal imaginable, but they had become something else during their weeks of preparation. They had become a team. Tomorrow we get on that alien ship, Sullivan said. We leave Earth as prisoners and criminals, but that's not what we are anymore. We're Earth's secret weapon. We're the thing the aliens never saw coming. Maria Santos nodded. They think they're getting slaves. They're actually getting an army. An army of people with nothing left to lose, Tony Mitchell added. The next morning, 10,000 criminals walked calmly onto the alien transport ship. They carried their few possessions and hidden weapons. They wore the clothes of prisoners but moved with the confidence of soldiers. Ambassador Zixathara watched the loading process with satisfaction. The humans seemed docile and cooperative, perfect worker material. If the alien had understood human nature better, it might have noticed something unsettling about the group. These humans smiled too easily. They moved with too much coordination. They watched everything with too much interest, but Zixathara saw only numbers. 10,000 specimens loaded successfully. Earth's tribute delivered as promised. Another primitive species brought into the galactic workforce. As the transport ship lifted off from Earth, carrying its dangerous cargo toward the outer colonies, the alien had no idea what it had just unleashed upon the galaxy. The alien transport ship was massive inside, but it felt like a prison. 10,000 humans were packed into cargo holds that had been quickly converted into living spaces. The aliens had installed basic sleeping platforms and waste facilities, but nothing more. The message was clear. Humans were cargo, not passengers. Captain Velthar commanded the ship from the bridge high above the cargo holds. The alien was proud of its efficiency record. In 20 years of tribute collection, it had never lost more than 2% of any species during transport. The key was keeping them properly contained and discouraged. The humans seem unusually quiet, reported Security Chief Nixval during their daily briefing. Most species show more distress during the first week. Captain Velthar barely looked up from its reports. Humans are weak-willed. They accept their fate quickly. This makes them excellent workers. The captain was wrong about the humans being quiet. They were communicating constantly, just not in ways the aliens recognized. Danny Sullivan had established a command structure within hours of departure. He used prison hand signals and whispered codes to organize the 10,000 people into manageable groups. Each section of the cargo hold had a leader who reported to Sullivan through a network of messengers. We need to learn everything about this ship, Sullivan told his lieutenants during a quiet meeting in the waste facilities. It was the only place the aliens never monitored closely. How many crew, what weapons they have, where the important systems are located. Maria Santos had already begun mapping the ship's layout. Her experience smuggling drugs had taught her to notice patrol patterns and security gaps. The aliens barely guard us, she reported. They have motion sensors and cameras, but only one guard for every 1,000 prisoners. They really think we're harmless. Tony Mitchell was studying the alien guards whenever they appeared. Their weapons are energy-based, probably non-lethal restraint devices. I haven't seen anything that looks like serious firepower. They're not expecting trouble. Karen White had the most important job. She was learning the alien computer systems by watching how the guards operated the doors and environmental controls. Her background in computer fraud was proving useful in understanding alien interfaces. Their technology is advanced, but it's not that different from ours, she explained to the group. They use visual displays, touch controls, even voice commands. I think I can figure out how to access their systems if I get close enough to a control panel. The aliens had made several critical mistakes in how they designed the prisoner transport. They assumed humans would be isolated, frightened, and disorganized. Instead, the harsh conditions were bringing out the prisoner's survival instincts and forcing them to work together. Steve Johnson had found a way to create small explosive devices using cleaning chemicals and metal scraps from the sleeping platforms. He was teaching others how to make them, passing the knowledge through whispered conversations and crude drawings. Sandra Davis was running intelligence operations, using her skills as a con artist to read the alien guards and learn their routines. She had identified which aliens were lazy, which ones were nervous, and which ones might be vulnerable to deception. The prisoners had even figured out how to maintain their hidden weapons and communication devices. The aliens performed basic searches, but they didn't understand human creativity. Radio parts were disguised as personal items, knives were broken down and hidden in clothing seams, explosive materials were mixed with food and medicines. By the second week of the journey, the humans had developed a shadow organization that the aliens couldn't see. They had leaders, communication networks, intelligence gathering, and even primitive weapons manufacturing. What looked like 10,000 defeated prisoners was actually becoming a coordinated military force. The transformation wasn't without problems. Old gang rivalries occasionally flared up, and the stress of confinement made some people unstable, but Danny Sullivan and his lieutenants handled these issues quickly and quietly. They couldn't afford internal conflicts when they had bigger enemies to worry about. "Remember why we're here," Sullivan told a group of former gang members who were arguing over territory in the cargo hold. "The aliens think we're animals. They locked us in cages and expect us to accept it. Are you going to prove them right, or are you going to show them what humans can really do?" The speech worked. The gang members put aside their differences and focused on the common enemy. Captain Velthar remained completely unaware of what was happening in the cargo holds. The daily reports showed normal stress levels among the human prisoners. Food consumption was within expected parameters. There had been no violence or escape attempts. By alien standards, it was a perfectly routine transport mission. The captain's biggest concern was staying on schedule. The ship was carrying humans to 12 different colony worlds, and each delivery had to be precisely timed. Any delays would anger the colonial administrators who were expecting their new workers. "How much longer until we reach the first drop-off point?" Velthar asked the navigation officer. "6 more days to the Kepler 442 system, Captain. The mining colony is expecting their allocation of 2,000 humans." Velthar was pleased. The humans assigned to the mining world were some of the strongest specimens. They would adapt well to the heavy labor required in the asteroid mines. The captain had no idea that those strong specimens included Danny Sullivan, Tony Mitchell, and 800 other criminals with military or gang experience. The mining colony was about to receive the most dangerous 2,000 humans Earth had ever produced. In the cargo holds, the prisoners continued their preparations. They practiced moving in coordinated groups during the daily exercise periods. They memorized the ship's layout and identified key systems. They refined their hidden weapons and communication methods. Most importantly, they planned for what would happen after they reached the colonies. "The aliens are going to split us up," Sullivan explained to the group leaders. "They'll send us to different worlds, different facilities, but we'll stay in contact through the hidden radios. We'll coordinate our actions across all the colonies." "What's the end game?" asked Maria Santos. "What are we actually trying to accomplish?" Sullivan smiled grimly. "We're going to teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating humans. The aliens want workers? We'll be the best workers they've ever seen, right up until we're ready to show them what we really are." The ship continued its journey through space, carrying its dangerous cargo toward the outer colonies. Captain Velthar filed routine reports about the successful transport of human specimens. The Galactic Council received updates confirming Earth's compliance with the tribute system. Nobody in the alien hierarchy suspected that humanity had just deployed its most dangerous citizens as a hidden weapon across 12 colony worlds. The criminals who had once terrorized Earth's cities were about to become the galaxy's problem. And unlike their victims on Earth, the aliens had no police force coming to save them. 6 months had passed since the human prisoners arrived at the colonies. To the alien administrators, everything seemed to be going perfectly. The humans worked hard, followed orders, and caused no trouble. Production numbers were higher than expected. The tribute system was working exactly as designed. Governor Kulmesh of the Kepler 442b mining colony was particularly pleased with his allocation of 2,000 humans. The rocky world was rich in rare metals, but the work was dangerous and difficult. Previous worker species had high injury rates and low productivity. The humans were different. Remarkable specimens, Kulmesh told his monthly report to the Galactic Council. They adapt quickly to our equipment and actually improve efficiency. Some of our mining operations are running at 120% of projected output. What the governor didn't mention was how the humans had achieved this improvement. They worked in perfectly coordinated teams, as if they could read each other's minds. They modified equipment without permission, making tools more effective. They organized work schedules that somehow got more done with less effort. Danny Sullivan had become the unofficial leader of the human workers on Kepler 442b. To the aliens, he was just another prisoner who worked hard and kept the others in line. In reality, he was running a shadow government that controlled nearly every aspect of human activity on the planet. Phase 1 is complete, Sullivan reported during a secret meeting in the abandoned section of Mineshaft 7. We've learned their systems, mapped their facilities, and gained their trust. Time to move to Phase 2. The humans had spent 6 months being perfect workers while secretly preparing for something else entirely. They had memorized security codes by watching alien guards. They had identified weapon storage areas and communication centers. They had even figured out how to access the colony's computer networks. Ben Lewis, a former gang leader now working as a shift supervisor, had used his position to recruit human workers from other sections. "We have people in every major facility," he reported. "Mining operations, power generation, food processing, even the governor's personal staff. When we move, we can hit everything at once." Karen White had made the most progress with alien technology. Her job maintaining computer systems gave her access to the colony's central network. She had been quietly installing hidden programs that would give humans control over critical systems. "I can shut down their communications, lock their security doors, even control the life support systems," she told the group. "But once I do this, there's no going back. They'll know we're not just workers anymore." The humans weren't the only ones preparing. Similar conversations were happening on 11 other colony worlds. The hidden radios they had smuggled from Earth kept all the human groups in contact. Sandra Davis, now working at an agricultural colony, coordinated information between the different worlds. "The pattern is the same everywhere," she reported over the encrypted channel. "The aliens trust us completely. They've given us access to everything because they think we're too primitive to be a threat. In 3 days, we all move together." The plan was ambitious beyond anything the criminals had attempted on Earth. 12 colony worlds controlled by different alien species would face simultaneous uprisings. The humans would seize control of mining operations, agricultural centers, manufacturing facilities, and communication networks. But this wasn't just random violence. The prisoners had learned from their mistakes on Earth. This time they were going to build something better. Maria Santos had established supply lines between different human work groups. She used her experience moving drugs to move weapons, information, and people, without the aliens noticing. "We're not just taking over," she explained. "We're creating a new system, one that works for us." Tony Mitchell had been training human workers in basic combat tactics disguised as workplace safety drills. The aliens thought he was teaching them how to avoid mining accidents. Actually, he was preparing them for war. "Remember, we're not trying to kill everyone," Mitchell told his trainees. "We want to control them. Dead aliens can't operate their technology. We need some of them alive to teach us what we don't know yet." The aliens had no idea what was coming. Governor Kulmesh was planning to request more human workers for his colony. The productivity improvements were so impressive that other governors were asking how he managed it. Maintenance Chief Krixtal was the only alien who seemed suspicious. The engineering officer had noticed too many small equipment failures that somehow benefited the humans. Doors that malfunctioned to give humans access to restricted areas. Computer systems that glitched in ways that revealed security information. Tools that broke in ways that forced humans to learn alien repair techniques. "Something is not right about these humans," Krixtal told Governor Kulmesh during a private meeting. "They learn too quickly. They adapt too well. No species becomes this efficient this fast." "You worry too much," the governor replied. The council's evaluation of human capabilities was accurate. They are simple but effective workers. Nothing more. Krixtal wasn't convinced but had no proof of wrongdoing. The humans followed all rules, met all quotas, and caused no incidents. On paper, they were perfect workers. The engineers' instincts were correct, but it was too late to matter. The humans had already learned everything they needed to know. They understood alien technology, security procedures, and military capabilities. More importantly, they had identified the aliens' greatest weakness: arrogance. "They still think we're stupid," Sullivan told his final planning meeting. "Even after 6 months of working with us, they see us as trained animals. That's going to be their downfall." The night before the uprising, the human workers seemed especially calm. They completed their shifts normally, ate their meals quietly, and went to sleep without any unusual behavior. The alien guards reported nothing suspicious, but in the darkness, final preparations were being made. Hidden weapons were distributed. Communication devices were activated. Teams moved into position near critical facilities. Steve Johnson placed his carefully crafted explosives at key points throughout the mining complex. Sandra Davis sent final coordination messages to the other colony worlds. Karen White prepared to execute her computer viruses that would cripple alien systems. At exactly midnight, colony time, the uprising began. Across 12 worlds, 10,000 human criminals struck simultaneously. They moved with precision that would have impressed Earth's military forces. Security systems failed as Karen White's viruses activated. Communications went dead as hidden explosives destroyed transmission towers. Alien guards found themselves locked in their own facilities as humans took control of door systems. Governor Kulmesh woke to the sound of alarms throughout his colony. Emergency lights were flashing and his communication systems were completely dead. When he tried to call for help, he discovered that humans now controlled the colony's main computer network. Danny Sullivan's voice came over the intercom system, calm and professional. "Governor Kulmesh, this is the new management. Please report to the main conference room for a discussion about your colony's future. Come alone and unarmed, and nobody will be hurt." The governor stared at the speaker in shock. The simple human worker who had seemed so obedient was giving him orders. For the first time since the tribute system began, the Galactic Council was about to learn what happened when you underestimated humanity. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in their 1,000-year history. High Counselor Thexanar stood before the assembled representatives of 47 species, trying to explain how a primitive tribute species had seized control of 12 colony worlds in a single night. The humans have taken over mining operations on Kepler 442b, agricultural centers on New Harvest, and manufacturing facilities on 6 other worlds, Thexanar announced, his voice strained with disbelief. "They control communications, power systems, and transport networks. Our colonial governors are being held as what the humans call negotiation partners." The council chamber erupted in angry chittering, roars, and electronic screeches from dozens of different species. This had never happened before. Tribute species were supposed to be grateful for the opportunity to serve. They certainly weren't supposed to organize military takeovers. Ambassador Zix Thara, who had delivered the original tribute demand to Earth, spoke from the corner where it had been relegated after the disaster. The humans seemed completely compliant. During selection and transport, our psychological profiles indicated they were weak-willed and easily controlled. "Your profiles were wrong," snapped Counselor Vrex of the military caste. "What is the current military situation?" High Counselor Thexanar activated a holographic display showing the affected colony worlds. Red markers indicated human-controlled areas, and there were far too many of them. "The humans have fortified positions around all major facilities. They've modified our own defense systems to protect themselves. Most disturbing, they appear to be coordinating their actions across multiple star systems." That last fact was what truly frightened the council. Individual colony uprisings had happened before, but never coordinated rebellions across multiple worlds. It suggested a level of organization and planning that no tribute species should possess. On Kepler 442b, Danny Sullivan was conducting his own meeting with Governor Kulmesh. The alien sat across from him in what had been the governor's own conference room, now guarded by former human prisoners armed with captured alien weapons. "You have made a serious mistake," Kulmesh said, trying to maintain his authority despite being a prisoner in his own facility. "The Council's military forces will crush this rebellion. You cannot possibly hold these positions against trained soldiers." Sullivan smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Governor, you've been thinking about this all wrong. We're not trying to hold territory. We're trying to prove a point. What point? That humans are a lot more dangerous than you thought. As if summoned by those words, new alarms began sounding throughout the colony. This time, they weren't caused by human sabotage. They were early warning systems detecting incoming spacecraft. Admiral Jake Morrison's voice crackled over the communication system. This is the Earth Defense Force requesting permission to land for a humanitarian inspection of human workers. We're here to ensure the welfare of our citizens. Governor Kulmesh stared at Sullivan in confusion. Your planet doesn't have interstellar capability. How is this possible? You gave us a whole year to reverse engineer your technology while you weren't paying attention, Sullivan replied. Turns out humans are pretty good at building things when we put our minds to it. The truth was even more impressive than Sullivan let on. While the Galactic Council had been focused on collecting their tribute, Earth had been working frantically to develop its own space fleet. The year of apparent cooperation had been used to study every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on. Admiral Morrison's fleet wasn't large, only 12 ships, but they were built using a combination of human engineering and captured alien designs. More importantly, they had arrived at exactly the right moment to support the prisoner. Uprising. Admiral Morrison to all human forces, came the broadcast on their hidden communication network. Phase 3 is a go. Repeat, Phase 3 is a go. Across the 12 colony worlds, the human prisoners revealed the final part of their plan. The Yauti uprisings hadn't been random acts of violence. They had been carefully designed to capture and hold strategic assets until Earth's military could arrive to support them. Maria Santos led a team that secured the main spaceport on New Harvest, allowing Admiral Morrison's ships to land safely. Tony Mitchell's combat-trained workers held the mining facilities against arriving alien security forces. Karen White's computer viruses had spread throughout the colony networks, giving humans control over critical systems across multiple worlds. Dalmai. Galactic Council's military response was confused and ineffective. They had protocols for dealing with primitive species, but those protocols assumed the primitives would fight with crude weapons and basic tactics. The humans were using advanced alien technology against its own creators, often more effectively than the aliens themselves. High Counselor Thexanar received increasingly desperate reports from military commanders. The humans weren't just defending their positions, they were expanding them. Each colony world that sent reinforcements found those reinforcements either defeated or, worse, convinced to join the human cause. They're offering our own colonial workers better conditions than we provide, reported one frustrated military officer. Some of our labor species are switching sides. That was the moment when the Galactic Council realized they had a bigger problem than just one rebellious tribute species. The humans had exposed fundamental weaknesses in the entire colonial system. The final confrontation came when Admiral Morrison requested a direct meeting with the Galactic Council. Not a surrender negotiation, but a diplomatic discussion between equals. The human Admiral Morrison wishes to address the Council, announced the Chamber's protocol officer, uncertainty clear in its voice. Admiral Morrison entered the council chamber flanked by Danny Sullivan and several other former prisoners. The contrast was striking. A professional military officer standing beside career criminals who now controlled alien colonies. Honorable counselors, Morrison began, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. I'm here to discuss the new reality of human-alien relations. You will surrender your stolen territories and submit to punishment, High Counselor Thexanar demanded. No, Morrison replied simply. We'll be keeping the colonies. Consider them payment for the damages caused by your tribute system. The chamber erupted in outrage, but Morrison continued speaking over the noise. You made a fundamental error in judgment. You assumed that because humans came from a single planet, we were weak and primitive. You thought our criminals were our worst citizens. Actually, they turned out to be exactly what we needed for this situation. Danny Sullivan stepped forward. You wanted to test human character? Congratulations. You found out what happens when you threaten our freedom. The negotiation that followed lasted 3 days. In the end, the Galactic Council had little choice but to accept the new situation. The humans had proven they could defend their captured territories, and Earth's military was growing stronger every day. The final agreement established humanity as a sovereign species with full membership in the Galactic Council. The former prisoners were granted amnesty and citizenship in the new human colonies. Earth gained access to advanced alien technology and trade networks. Most importantly, the tribute system was abolished. Other species had watched the human rebellion with great interest, and several were making their own demands for better treatment. 6 months later, Danny Sullivan stood on the observation deck of what was now called New Boston Colony, watching Earth ships arrive with voluntary colonists. Former Admiral Morrison had been elected as the colony's first civilian governor, while Sullivan served as security chief. "Think they learned their lesson?" asked Maria Santos, joining him at the viewing window. "Some of them did," Sullivan replied. "The smart ones realized that humans are more useful as partners than slaves." The Galactic Council had indeed learned its lesson. Their species evaluation protocols now included a new category for humanity: extremely dangerous when threatened. Recommend diplomatic engagement only. It was exactly the kind of reputation humanity had wanted to establish among the stars.